Hello, and welcome to another episode of Geeks Love Lists. My name is Robin-Leigh Chetty. I will be driving today's episode. Joining me as always is Brendyn Lotz.
Hello.
And Louis Monzon.
Howdy.
How dare you?
The intellectual property theft continues.
How dare you?
I did that on purpose, but hey everybody.
Yes, all well, thank you. So, today's episode, we're focusing on grocery apps. I guess you can call them food delivery apps, whatever you really want to call them. Dealer's choice. But these apps have become almost an essential part of anyone that owns a smartphone these days. Anyone that's working from home, anyone that just lives in South Africa at the moment.
Anybody who eats food.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But that wasn't always the case. I think over the past few years, these kind of platforms have all proliferated on the back of the pandemic, and we'll discuss that shortly. But yeah, today's episode is really about kind of looking at the different grocery apps that are available in South Africa, which ones are best, what they do well, what they don't, and some things that consumers need to keep in mind the next time that they are looking to use an app to get food delivered to their home instead of, I don't know, the normal way of driving to the store and just buying it yourself.
How archaic.
Also, I think it's also perhaps worth mentioning the fact that that method might also be a bit more cost effective, but we'll get into all that stuff a bit later.
Yeah.
But first of all, I think the proliferation of these apps.
Yeah.
We saw during the pandemic, initially when there was the lockdown, there was the government was pretty hard and fast on the fact that no deliveries whatsoever were going to be allowed.
Yeah.
And then Takealot did a lot of lobbying to get that to change. Minister Patel, he proclaimed now that deliveries were available to all South Africans under lockdown, under certain conditions in lockdown. And Takealot took great advantage of that. I think Takealot, we'll see what happens obviously later in the year when Amazon comes to try and eat its lunch. But Takealot really thrived during the pandemic.
I mean, they started the whole grocery and food staple. Well, they created a whole category for it on their website when they were finally able to sell more than just perfume and
I think
spare mouses.
A lot of people use that time to purchase essentials. Essentials were the key element. Bread, milk, water, toilet paper, those kind of things you can't live without.
Oreos.
Yeah.
So during lockdown, I thought that I'd purchased one thing of Oreos from Takealot. Nope, I'd purchased the whole box.
Well, you need a milk delivery vehicle.
Absolutely.
That makes
Got to
That's
get that vitamin, that calcium.
A happy accident to get those many Oreos.
I think another platform that really thrived on the back of lockdown, the pandemic, was Uber Eats. I think it was perhaps better prepared than any other platform at that time to kind of facilitate people's needs. Obviously, it was mainly takeaway food, not necessarily groceries at that time, but it has since pivoted, and we will kind of discuss that pivot and what it potentially means for some of the big players. Speaking of which, the kind of big players in the market at the moment, that would be Checker 6060. I think that's pretty well known. And in more recent years, Woolies Dash has come onto the scene, Pick and Pay ASAP, which has, I'm sorry to say, it has a really irritating ad. I just can't hear the word fresh that many times in 60 seconds. It really
Also, I do give them a bit of props for delivering to apartment number 5959.
No, I didn't pick that up actually. So that was quite a little subtle jab at the competition. So there's ASAP. There's also Zulzi, which we have tested out a little bit ourselves. The big thing around Zulzi is that it claims it can get your groceries delivered to you within 15 minutes.
Yeah,
that's not always the case, but yeah, you're saying
That's their big,
the USP, unique selling point.
Difference, the big selling point, right?
And we'll kind of discuss why that's a great thing and also not such a great thing a bit later on when we're kind of comparing the pros and cons of each of these platforms. Also, I guess more recently, Spar to You. It hasn't necessarily been as aggressive as the other retailers in terms of kind of raising the profile or the visibility of its application, but it has one as well. Bolt Food. which is now no longer available. It had its time. I think it.
Womp womp.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it wanted to try and capitalize on the same thing that Uber Eats did, but
Yeah,
unfortunately did not. And I guess those are kind of the core platforms that we're going to be looking at today. I think perhaps a good jumping off point now is kind of your guys' experiences. Which apps do you actually make use of on a daily basis or weekly basis?
So I think I speak for everyone here when I say that like I use 6060 very often. I just find that it generally has everything that I'm looking for, and if they don't have it, there's an alternative. It's very rare that I'm on 6060 and something is out of stock, and in recent years they've gotten a lot better with having the stuff that's on the app is available in the store that you're shopping from.
Yeah.
So I think that's like some back room sort of or back office stuff that they're doing there, where there's like a constant update to 6060 about what products are in stock. So that's really good. Now and then I find myself going to Mr. D for pick and pay, because they do pick and pay deliveries. And what I like about that, the only reason I really use it is because you can select which pick and pay you want your groceries delivered from, whereas 6060 is just like the one that's closest to you. And I do like that little bit of customization, because for instance I know that like a pick and pay, the closest pick and pay to me doesn't really stock pork items, because like not many customers in that area eat pork. But if I go a bit further out, there is one that does deliver pork products. So like for me, it's just being able to cater to what I need to. It gives me a bit more freedom, I think, as a shopper. So yeah, and then Zulzi I've used a couple of times in the past, and the first time I used them, they delivered on that 15 to 20 minute promise. 20 minutes I had my groceries with me. But other times I found that things are just a bit too slow. Something else I've noticed with all of these apps, and I think it's more just a safety thing, is that if it's raining, like quite heavily, these apps are unavailable. And you do wait longer for the delivery, which I think kind of counts in like 6060's. It doesn't count in their favor, because 6060, I'm not sure if our listeners know this, but if they don't deliver your order within 60 minutes, or 80% of your items, sorry, not 80%, I think it's like, if as many as if only 80% of your items that you picked first are there, you get the delivery fee back. And I have to wonder how much that is hurting them financially. Obviously not, because like ShopRite's results are really good, and 6060 is an area of growth for them. So maybe they're just taking that loss on the chin.
Yeah, it's probably an economies of scale kind of issue. We'll take the hit here because we know we're doing well.
We know you'll come back, because you get that as in-app credits.
Exactly.
And that goes towards your next purchase. Yeah.
I was just about to say, you get it as in-app credit. A lot of these apps are doing this thing with the in-app credit thing. So basically, they keep your money because they know you're going to come back. I've used a lot of 6060 recently. So I'm very nervous or paranoid about any sort of e-commerce thing. I guess that's just from reading many years all the things that can go wrong. So I've used 6060 quite a bit. I've used Pick and Pay ASAP also. I found that Pick and Pay ASAP, the on-app experience, the UI, is not as good. It's kind of confusing. Trying to find items isn't so easy. The app is a little bit slow.
The search I find is terrible with ASAP. Like, you can search for like chicken nuggets and then there's nothing. But then when you're going through like frozen products, there's chicken nuggets. Yeah.
I find that the 6060 search is really good.
Yeah.
You can just say like the most. It might not even be what the product is called, but just the brand name, and it'll drop all the brand name products that you might be looking for. I think Pick and Pay also I think takes longer. They will give you so in the experiences that I've used it, like it'll tell you okay, your delivery will come. You can order it at 9 o'clock in the morning. Your delivery will be there maybe like 2 o'clock. Yeah. While 6060 might do it a bit earlier, Usually with these grocery apps, it does take longer than say like a food app, like a like a fast food delivery app. But I find that Pick and Pay hasn't always been the best in that regard. You get the products, you get the items eventually, And also, I've in the few times that I have used Pick and Pay, I have noticed that the quality of the items isn't always the best. I think I ordered some pies, and when they got to us, they were like really old pies. I think maybe that's just
Like
the
day
problem.
old.
A while old.
Okay.
And you can tell when a pie is nice and when a pie is old.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, thanks, Pick and Pay. But I think that's more a problem with Pick and Pay itself rather than the app. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind at least.
So I guess on my side, thanks for asking.
It was expected that you were next.
Nah, just being salty. So on my side, during the pandemic, I was a big one-cart guy, actually.
Oh, I loved one cart during the pandemic. It was so great.
Yeah, but then I guess it became quite expensive. I guess that's just the nature of the beast because it's not necessarily a dedicated app for a singular retailer. It's working across multiple retailers. And also, at the time, there was no Woolworths Dash. And I know I sound very bougie right now, but I always used to order from the Woolworths in Mall of Africa, which was closer to me than other places at the time. But it wasn't closer to me than the Checkers, which was literally right across the road.
Yeah.
So I eventually transitioned over to Checkers 6060 because I just found it more convenient and obviously quicker.
You don't have to wait for Woolworths to come and deliver, or one cart rather, to come and deliver your stuff.
The one thing I will mention though about one cart is when, for example, an item is out of stock that you want to order, the interaction with the person, the shopper, is great.
Yeah.
Because they're in constant communication with you via WhatsApp saying, this is the item, they send you pictures, this is what it looks like, are you happy for me to substitute? And that process is quite seamless. With other applications, I haven't found it to be the same, especially, I guess, I should perhaps just talk a bit more about my app journey. But after I did the transition to Checker 660, once the pandemic and lockdown ended, I was hankering to actually go into the retailer to actually purchase my groceries for one simple reason, and that is because I get to pick the item that I like. So when you're in the vegetable aisle or when you're in the meat aisle, when you're looking at those products, not all products are the same.
Yeah.
Yes, they might, for all intents and purposes, they are the same, but I know what I look for, what kind of marbling I want on my ribeye.
Yeah.
I'm not, unfortunately, a shopper will just grab whatever.
The top one, the other one that's on top.
More readily available to them. So that's what I like about shopping in person.
So sorry, to just add on to that, like something I found that is a bit concerning is, especially when it comes to fresh products, I find that, like, especially with 6060, and maybe it's just a product of using them more often, but I find that I'm often getting fresh items that are like one day within expiry date.
I think that's a purposeful decision from the retailers. It would make sense for them to do that.
Yeah, because the person in the store is going to look at the expiry date and put it down and get one that expires a bit later. Whereas me sitting at home waiting for my delivery,
I'll just take whatever's given.
I don't have a choice really.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem with these delivery platforms in general. And to kind of go with what Robin is saying, that you lose that choice. The shoppers, and you can see them when you go to Checkers, the 66 shoppers, they have their own. They have their own. They scan. They go around scanning the products. They have their own section just for the 6060 shoppers. They have staff just for 6060, and maybe there's more than other apps because of the popularity of 6060. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say they're the most popular in South Africa.
Yeah, for sure.
They have to go. They have to have lots of orders. These people are rushing across the store, grabbing products, scanning them, throwing them in the cart. I mean, I once ordered a tin of baby formula, and they gave it to me with the thief protection. And we had to break a few knives trying to get it open. And you can't. How am I going to take that back to the shop?
Yeah, because they're going to accuse you of stealing.
I stole it. Right, but that's something you have to keep in mind with these apps, is that you lose that choice of the products that you grab, and especially with Checkers, the problem of the products closer to expiry date, that's becoming more and more of a Checkers issue, I think, overall, than just a delivery problem.
Yeah. So around the issue of choice, what I used to do was kind of cupboard staples, kind of everyday items, bread, milk, that kind of things, I was quite happy to go with Checkers 6060. It was most convenient and out of all the options, pretty affordable. However, I went to my local Woolworths to get my meat.
Right.
And those kind of, I don't want to call them luxury items, but items that I prefer to see in person and pick and choose. And items that I want, I don't want to say the freshest, but rather the item that I know that'll last longer. So the sell by or best before date is a few days from now, as opposed to on that same day, which is often the case when you go with these delivery apps. You get items that expire the day of, kind of thing. So that was my go-to tactic. And then I got introduced to Woolworths Dash, or Woolies Dash, whatever you want to call it. And now that is my pure go-to. Yes, you have to pay Woolies tax because Woolies things are quite expensive.
Tax,
but the pricing of the everyday items, so like the bread, pastas, things like that, are all are relatively affordable.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know just from experience, like things like milk, like the Woolworths brand sodas, which are pretty fine. Like, it's not Coca-Cola, yes. But, I mean, if you get like the cream soda, it tastes like cream soda. Those are generally cheaper than like if you buy the name brand stuff. Even like Woolworths chips, their chocolates, like Chuckles, which we all know contains some sort of mind-altering substance in them. But yeah, I do find that Woolworths, even though like I think it's their prepared food, like their salads and stuff, like those are generally more expensive.
Yeah.
But even like when it comes to their fresh fruits and vegetables, this is anecdotal, but I find that stuff from Woolworths lasts way longer in the fridge than anything else.
Yeah, I always get concerned about being called bougie or an elitist, and no, Woolworths is not paying me, but the quality is the difference there. I'm sorry.
I mean, you can sponsor this podcast, Woolies.
Yeah, they can do that if they want to. But so that's what I'm doing. Well, that's what I used to do, is kind of mix and match as my needs required. And yeah, I think that's also what a lot of people are doing at the moment. I do, however, want to just chat about Uber Eats. We mentioned it at the top of the podcast how it was a platform that was very much takeaway focused, and still I'm sure that is still a core part of their strategy and business. But in recent months, they have branched out into offering grocery items. You can also buy things like pet food from there if you need supplies for a braai on the weekend, things like that. Yeah, so liquor. So they're really branching out, and I do wonder if once they kind of sort out their catalog and their retailers and kind of the breadth of options you can purchase from there, if they will soon take over someone like a Checkers 6060.
So I think that Uber Eats is in a good position because something we haven't mentioned yet is that most of these apps have a minimum amount that you can order for.
Yeah.
So with Checkers 6060, it's 100 Rand. So you have to spend 100 Rand, not including the delivery fee, in order to make use of the service. What I found is that with Uber Eats, there is no such limit. You can literally buy something for $50 and have it delivered. I mean, it's a bit silly to buy something for $50 when the delivery fee is like $35, but I think that's a really important thing, because sometimes you do just need a loaf of bread or a 2 liter of milk because you can't get out, or like in Louis' case, he might have some problem with his child. He needs to be there, he can't leave, but you still want that cup of coffee. I think that Uber Eats is in that aspect, number one, they have more drivers than I think 6060 does. And it's a bit more democratic in that the delivery is offered to a lot more drivers. I also find that because Uber Eats drivers are so conditioned to deliver fast food, and that sort of stuff has a time limit on it, like you don't want somebody getting their food and it's cold. I find that Uber Eats drivers are a lot faster when it comes to their deliveries. They're a bit more like conscious of, okay, we need to get this to the person quicker.
So I'm going to counter that.
Okay.
Again, this is more anecdotal than anything else, but I found that in recent months, Uber Eats, in terms of speed of delivery, has been really erratic. And I'm not too sure what the reason for that is. A lot of the time I'm finding when I order something, my delivery person might have 1 or 2 other stops along the way. And
yeah, that does happen often.
I thought that was perhaps a symptom of the place I'm ordering from being very popular, and that might be, in fact, be the case.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd experiment a bit and see how much my tip would influence it.
Yeah.
And it has no effect.
Mm. Well, I think they only share the tip with the driver after delivery has been made.
Yeah.
I think that is because I've numerous times said to the Uber driver, I've tipped you after I've received the stuff. I'm like, I have tipped you, just so you know. And he didn't even know. So I think that's something that they share after the fact. So I don't know if it would affect, but I feel like that's information that should be shared with the driver to give them more incentive to pick up the delivery.
Well, maybe not. Again, I think we're just kind of hashing this out right now.
Yeah.
But it's, for me anyway, my experience, that's why I'm not too keen on using Uber Eats as a go-to grocery app. If it's like past the hours that Woolworths and Checkers are operating, then you're kind of forced to. But I'm still kind of leaning towards those more established grocery app platforms than Uber Eats. Uber Eats for me is still very much a takeaway kind of platform.
So I do want to just mention something. Spar to You is probably the newest kid on the block here with this stuff. Have either of you used it?
No,
Not yet, no.
Okay, so I've used it once, and it was a really bad experience. Number one, the user interface of that app is horrific. I haven't used it in like maybe a month or two, but it seriously needed attention, and that just pushed me away from it. The other problem is that Spar is damn expensive. Like, even when it comes to staples like bread and milk, I find that they are generally a more expensive place than like your Checkers, even Woolworths in some instances. And you can buy like the Spar brand, but I find that generally the quality is a bit worse than like the Checkers house brand or the Pick and Pay house brand. So like I think that Spar to You needs to do some real work in this regard, not just on pricing, but just on the whole experience of the shopping. The other problem is that Spar to You isn't available at all Spars. So if you're in an area where there's like a super Spar and they don't have Spar to You, then you're just out of luck. It just feels a bit like a half attempt at building a grocery delivery.
It's like they have to have one.
Yeah,
Everyone else has one. We have to
have one, and that's just like rather just don't do it. You know.
I do wonder though if they have a footprint issue. They simply don't have the same footprint that a Woolworths or Pick and Pay or
I disagree
Checkers.
because I think like Spar's that neighborhood grocery store, right? It's like it's almost like everybody has a Spar around the corner. Although I'm saying that now, I'm just thinking about like my parents who live in Krugersdorp, and I think the nearest Spar is way further than the nearest Pick and Pay or nearest Checkers. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is a footprint thing.
Maybe it was. I agree with you. Like Spar was that neighborhood place, but I think things like places like Woolworths have very much kind of cornered that market now. I think you can. I guess in this office, there's probably 5 or 6 Woolworths locations within a 5-kilometer radius.
I can think of like 2.
I can think of one that's literally less than a kilometer away already there.
So I mean, like, they have. I think that the footprint of the store that you're shopping from matters, but I mean, I guess that's also going to dictate which app you're going to use for your grocery delivery. I mean, I've used them all except really Woolies Dash, just because I just haven't used it. But yeah, I think that with the exception of 60/60, which Checkers has a huge footprint across the country.
You don't have to select which it just
it just finds one, and then you get your stuff delivered. So I mean, I do wonder though sometimes when I go onto 60/60 about whether they're just saying something is out of stock or whether it is actually out of stock, because like things like drinks, like Monster energy drinks, every time I try and order one, the flavor that I want is just missing.
The thing is, you don't know until you order, and then halfway when the shopper is buying the stuff, then they'll tell you, oh, this is out of stock.
And the problem with that, though, is that I find that the app is quite buggy at times, and you'll get that notification. If you're not looking at your phone, the notification comes through too late, and then it's like, oh, well, we didn't buy it.
Right.
And I just really wish that, and maybe this is the wrong thing to say, but I really wish that Checkers would give the shoppers a bit more leeway to think, to kind of take some initiative. It's like if I order a Monster original flavor and there isn't a Monster original flavor, Monster's not sponsoring this, by the way.
We're open to it.
Yeah, of course, but just give me a different flavor. Like,
I feel so. I think from a convenience perspective, your users and customers would love that.
Yeah.
However, if I am now playing devil's advocate from the business owner kind of operational perspective, that sounds like my shoppers are wasting a lot of time. This is Checkers 60-60. Not Checkers, not Checkers 1 hour and 20 minutes. We need to get this thing now.
Good point.
So that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed One Card at the time. Also, I think what happens is invariably, a lot of these platforms make you select an alternative.
Yeah.
Should an item be out of stock? I have not once been contacted by a Checkers person or a Woolworths person if an item's been out of stock.
Uber Eats, though.
Yeah, they do.
So if you order from a store, groceries or whatever, and that item is not in stock, the store itself calls you. And it's like, hey, we don't have this in stock, but we have this one. Is that fine?
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think that's probably not a remnant, but it's a result of the process they had when restaurants used to contact you and say this item is not available.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think that's cool, and it kind of plugs that gap, like I mentioned with Checkers and its back office stuff, where it was back office processes where there's this now constant stream of what's on the shelves, what isn't on the shelves, what is available for purchase online, all that sort of stuff.
On the topic of Mr. D, they recently, I think at the beginning of this year, they've had delivery like groceries for a while. And they had the Pick and Pay bottles. You can order liquor. Like during the pandemic, they started that you can order liquor. But recently this year, they've now when you open the Mr. D app, it gives you two options. Do you want food like from restaurants, or do you want groceries? That's like the first thing you see. So clearly they're looking to start delivering more groceries and stuff.
So it goes further than that, though. I believe that in some regions of South Africa, I'm sorry, we're doing it live right now.
Doing this live.
But I believe that you can now get 1 hour deliveries from Take-A-Lot, depending on where you're located.
Oh, yes, you can. Because they have an agreement with Take-A-Lot and Superbalist as well.
Yeah. So it's called Take-A-Lot now, yeah. So you can now order like an air fryer and have it delivered within an hour,
Right.
or 30 minutes. From where I am currently, we're located in Rosebank. So, I mean, obviously it depends where you are, but I mean, I think that's pretty cool, especially if you're somebody who uses Take-A-Lot often, and like you need a MacBook in the next 30 minutes.
Right. And I know exactly why Take-A-Lot have rolled that out.
And why is that?
Because Amazon is coming.
Yes, and Amazon Prime is going to destroy e-commerce in South Africa. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I think it's going to cause a lot of...
It's going to be the Uber of e-commerce.
I feel like it's going to force a lot of retailers and businesses to up their e-commerce and delivery game. Like, just because Amazon is so big and Bezos is a ruthless businessman who wants to maintain his position as one of the world's richest bald men.
Infamously, Amazon has so many like anti-consumer like policies in place. Policies that hurt not only you, the person who buys it, but also the businesses that resell through Amazon. They've been taken to court several times in the US about this whole stuff, as well as like dark patterns that they use in their websites and their UI that kind of get people to buy more, to subscribe to their stuff. So a lot of South African companies, even Take-A-Lot, which is the most evil in quotation marks of the big e-commerce sites, they don't have nearly as many negative selling things.
I don't know about that. I would argue against that, because I don't know if you guys ever picked this up, but during the pandemic or lockdown, whenever there was load shedding, boom, a notification came in from Uber Eats or Checkers or whatever, say special. These are the specials.
I've noticed.
Don't forget to order. So I think they're also up to no good there.
They're trying their hand at it. They're trying to see how to toe the line to see. But the thing is, when Amazon hits, when they start delivering in earnest, because I think that they're testing things out there in a beta phase right now. When they start delivering in earnest, we'll see like what the local companies can do against, the big Amazon.
Big bad Bezos.
So this is Geeks Love List. So let's run through the list and let's kind of just run through the pros and cons of each of the apps. I think a good one to start off with would likely be Spa to You, considering it's the one we know least about. But what is your kind of pros and cons there?
So number one is pricing. It's very expensive because Spa is an expensive retailer. It's not available everywhere. Or in terms of Spa to You, it's not available throughout South Africa, which I think is a bit of a problem.
So it's only available in the metros?
No. Well, I mean, yeah, it really depends on if the spa near you is able to
set up for it. Understood.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like it's only limited to Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and Western Cape. It's more just, is there a spa near you?
So,
does it have Spa to You?
So then it just tells you that we're not available in your area. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's kind of a downside. Also, the UI I found is just not very good. Maybe I'm just spoiled by 6060 and Pick and Pay ASAP. But I found that the UI was just very clunky. Search was hit or miss. It was such an unenjoyable experience that I thought, I'm just going to go to the spa. I'm just going to do that. I'll take the 30 minutes it takes to get there and back, and just go there. And then I was disappointed when I went there.
All right, so that's Spa to You. Zulzi. Again, I think, Brendyn, we have to lean on you here. But
so, I mean, I think one of the problems with Zulzi is availability of items. So if you shop early in the morning, you're going to find, like, eggs, bread, milk, all that sort of stuff. But as the day wears on, those fresh items start to disappear.
Wait, so... Again, I might be speaking out of turn here, but is Zulzi then is it like a ghost warehouse kind of situation?
Yeah, so it's a dark store. So essentially what it is Zulzi has like a retail store, except it's not for customers to go into. So they'll have shelves full of items, cold storage. Yeah, it's just dispatch. And then when you place your order, obviously a shopper goes through the shelves, picks what you need, and then that gets handed to a driver who then delivers it. So in terms of their process, it's really streamlined. It's really fast. Even the shopping happens way quicker than I thought that it would ever happen.
I'm sure it's because the dark store or whatever is made to make that easy, right?
Yeah.
It's not a grocery store where they need to have, adverts
and a layout and lighting and all this sort of stuff.
Just rows of the stuff. The people know where to get it. They go bam, 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 and they.
So in terms of efficiency, it's really good. Like I mentioned earlier, the pricing can be up and down. Like you could get a kilo of potatoes for $20 one day, next day it could be like 30. But then also like the quality of stuff that you get. So I once ordered fresh chicken thighs, and they arrived frozen. I was like, okay.
Fresh frozen.
Fresh frozen. Freshly frozen, which is a thing, but that's not what I wanted. And also their 15 to 20 minutes delivery promise is hit or miss. Like it depends on lots of things. Like the first time I used them, it was relatively quiet. It was the middle of the afternoon. But the second time I ordered, it was just after peak hour traffic. So I think that the person got stuck in traffic. And that's something that I don't think these people accounted for. Also, the person was driving a vehicle, a car, not a bike, which puts them even worse at, it takes the delivery even longer. So Zulzi is fine. If you are in need of something desperate and they have it available, I mean, give it a try. Their delivery price is the same, or their delivery fee is the same as everybody else. It's $35. And their selection can be fine. It's like if you desperately need something and like Pick and Pay doesn't have it or Checkers doesn't have it for some odd reason, then Zulzi is a good option.
All right. I guess next we can...
my first choice.
Sure thing. I think next we can talk about Pick and Pay Fresh. I mean, Pick and Pay ASAP.
For Pick and Pay ASAP, I think the UI is not the greatest. The actual, the experience of the app could use some work, and I think that's a problem with a lot of like local delivery platforms. It's very difficult to find the items you want. It's no, in a word, I would say it's intimidating to use. You open the app and you really have to look through a bunch of names and a bunch of pictures to really find what you want, because the search doesn't work that well. And then you have to wait quite a bit longer than other delivery companies. In this, I'm talking about Checkers 6060. You have to wait a bit longer to get your products.
So then, do they give you windows? A delivery slot?
Yeah,
Okay.
from here to here. Or usually, in the several times that I've used it, most of the time it's after 1 o'clock that I got to my delivery. I don't know, it's because they don't have the infrastructure that Checkers has. And this could have changed over time. I haven't used them in a while. Maybe now they have a bit more shoppers, more drivers, more stuff. But yeah, it usually took a lot longer than my experience with Checkers, for example. Price-wise, Pick n Pay is also one of the more expensive grocers out there. So yeah, that's something also to consider if you're gonna use Pick n Pay ASAP.
All right.
Woolies, Robin?
Yeah, what was Dash? So previously it was a standalone app, and then it got incorporated into the Woolworths app.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like about it is that you're able to toggle through different delivery options. So there's Dash, then there's next day, and then I think there's 3 to 5 business days. And Dash is very much focused on grocery items, and then the next day is a mix of grocery and some clothing. And then the 3 to 5 is kind of essentially the entire Woolworths inventory. Yeah. So I really enjoy that ability to toggle between what you want. So yes, I know we're focusing here on grocery delivery specifically, but the ability to kind of go outside of that is really nice as well. In terms of the speed of the delivery, depending on how close you are to the next available time or window or slot, whatever you want to call it, it can be really quick. What I have found, however, is that it's limited to the day. So if, for example, after 6 o'clock you want to, or rather at, let's say, 5 o'clock you want to start picking out some groceries to have delivered tomorrow morning, if those slots for the next morning aren't available, you just have to wait. So you have to wait until late in the evening until the next following morning slots are open up for you. It's not a massive con, but it is something that I don't see why it can't be worked around.
Yeah.
The other issue I have with Woolies Dash is when the item is out of stock. I receive no communication whatsoever from the shopper, which I find really frustrating.
Yeah.
You were mentioning the Monster story there. I ordered some sofrito paste.
Yeah.
And that was out of stock. So surely just pick up tomato paste.
Yeah.
Because it's
the same thing.
Just
basically, yeah.
Celery and carrots. Anyway. So that to me didn't really make sense, especially when both items were priced the same.
Yeah, that's kind of my big issue with like a lot of these apps is that just get me the products that's a similar price. I mean, you already charge me more for replacements that I've picked, like with 6060. But I mean, like, why can everybody not do this?
I suppose you could run into problems like, oh, well, I didn't order that. There are some people like a Karen.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Why did you get me the tomato paste? I ordered the sofrito paste. Man, because we didn't have the sofrito paste. Well, I didn't order blah blah blah. You're trying to avoid problems like that.
Yeah,
good point.
It might be worth. It's actually probably more trouble than it's actually worth to do that.
Yeah.
So those, I guess, are my cons. But in general, it's kind of become my kind of go-to grocery delivery platform. And then I think 6060, we all have kind of ideas around that.
Just to start, and I'm sure Brendyn will jump in, but I think just to start, I think if you're considering trying a delivery platform in South Africa for groceries, 6060 is a really good place to start because it's kind of how it's not the best it's not like full marks in every department, but it gets most things right.
It gets enough right for you to be like, oh, this is convenient.
And
I'll use this again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The search is good. The products get to you quickly. It's not the most expensive. It's the UI it's workable. It's fine. So yeah, a good place to start would be 6060 if you're really considering shopping, and then from there you can try other ones and see which ones you think is best.
It can't all be good. What's wrong with it?
What, with 6060?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we mentioned already the availability thing. Like if something is not available, then if you haven't picked an alternative and you are not watching the app, you just won't get that item.
Yeah.
The problem there is that Pick n Pay Checkers will refund you the money, except it refunds it to you as in-app credit. And that goes towards your next shop, sure. But I mean, like I'm currently sitting with like $50 of credit on my 6060 app because like they didn't have the specific brand of milk that I ordered.
Yeah, if I need eggs and your app can't give it to me, I want the money back so I can go to an app
shop to get
that can actually.
Yeah, so the problem is that with 6060 is that my first choice and the backup that I selected weren't available. And I mean, it was 2 liters full cream milk. I'm pretty sure there's more than 2 brands of full cream milk in South Africa. So that was really annoying. And now I sit with like 50 something rand worth of credit and I can't make an order until I need to make an order, right? So it's just sitting there and I worry about it because it's credit. You know, it's money that is mine that is sitting there and I have to use it for 6060.
Also, one of the problems with that, when they tell you that they don't have the product.
Yeah.
If you're not glued to your phone all the time, so usually when I order something, I'll just leave my phone. And I'll do something else, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't check that the notifications that we don't have this product, they'll just show up and you open the bag and it's like, oh, where's this and this, or you didn't get it, you didn't have,
Yeah.
So you have to. That's another issue. You have to really make sure that certain products you have to keep watch of the app, make sure that they have the stuff. Because once the driver leaves Checkers and they don't have the stuff, you're not getting it.
So the last kind of, I don't want to call it an issue because it's not really an issue and it's not going to be an issue for everyone. But I don't know if you guys have noticed, but of late, a lot of these delivery apps are now selling vapes. So like if you have e-cigarettes. Mm-hmm. So for instance, I know that Mr. D does it. I know that Uber Eats does it through its various retail partners. And Checkers 6060 recently started doing it. The problem is that like finding this stuff is really difficult. And it concerns me because technically in South Africa, tobacco products are not allowed to be sent via post or via delivery. This is something I realized during the pandemic because after restrictions were lifted on the sale of tobacco and alcohol, I obviously wanted to social distance, so I wanted to purchase tobacco products to be delivered to me. And that's when I realized, oh, hang on, there's like this draconian law from 1996 that says that you can't, unless you are like an official retailer with an intention to sell these products, you're not allowed to have them delivered via the post. And I know that Bottles used to do it before it became Pick n Pay ASAP. When it was still its own independent thing. But I'm concerned that these apps are delivering e-cigarettes, electronic cigarettes, and they're kind of flouting the law. But it could just be that they don't fall under the gamut. Yeah, they don't fall under the gamut of that legislation. But still, they make these products really hard to find. And then, once again, it's the replacement thing. Like, if I am... So I'll go with like 3% vapes, or 3% nicotine, and then sometimes I'll get the pods for my views and it's 0%. This happened just yesterday actually, where I got a nicotine-free vape cartridge. What use is that to me?
Right.
I need that nicotine in my bloodstream, yo.
Daddy needs his nicotine, please.
But these are the problems, is that I feel like where Checkers fails is the communication with the customer. Like a live chat facility would be nice, like something that integrates with WhatsApp, not their own chat, please. And then I also find like logging queries with 6060 can be a bit hit or miss. Like sometimes somebody will pick up immediately. Sometimes they won't pick up for a while. Sometimes they won't pick up and they'll WhatsApp you. So I think that there's just a few little quirks that need to be ironed out. Overall though, I mean, I keep using 6060, so clearly they're doing something right.
Yeah, it's that convenience thing.
Yeah.
It's super convenient. Like, if you can't go to the shop, you can get 6060 and it's not super expensive and you'll get the stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so let's discuss the wild card, which is actually going to the store yourself. We used to do it.
Yeah. It's
why have we stopped?
So if you order food from restaurant at any point recently, you will notice how much more expensive
Yeah.
it is. It is insane the markup they have put on the stuff. Like I would even venture to say that someone should do something. They should do some legislation. It's not fair. It's. I was gonna say a bad word. It's not good, right?
I don't believe 200 Rand for a personal sized pizza is a fair price.
It's not. It's not. Especially when you go to the restaurant and it's maybe like $90. You know, like they're abusing their customers because they know that people will still do it because the convenience is just so, it's so much. And you can, the same thing applies, I think, don't think in the same amount, but the same thing does apply. It's much cheaper to just go to the shop.
Yeah.
It takes longer, but it's much cheaper. You'll get more choice. You won't run into the problem of ordering and waiting for your products, and when they come, you don't get half of the what you ordered. It's just not as convenient.
So this is then my question to you guys. If it is not as convenient, if it's more expensive to use grocery apps, what is your kind of go-to? What's a mix of your kind of purchasing these days? How much of it is on the app and how much of it actually is in person?
So we try to go to the shops. If we're going to do like a big grocery haul, like a weekly or a monthly groceries, we go to the shop. I tend to only use delivery apps if like I'm really busy. We need something now. We need milk or bread or eggs now, and I can't get to the shop right now. I'm busy. I have articles. I have things to do. I have a 1-year-old.
Robin's cracking the whip.
Yeah. My editor's breathing down my neck. That's when I'll use a delivery app. I think that's the best way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I only use it now for things like coffee, sugar, milk. Not even milk, but coffee, sugar, just like pantry staples, really. Things that I don't really care if I get the one I want. So like if I get whole peeled tomatoes instead of chopped tomatoes in the tin, so what? I'll chop them with a knife when I'm cooking. But like when it comes to fresh stuff, I find myself kind of just wanting to go to the shop because I want to be able to see and smell the stuff, especially with things like chicken. Like I want to be able to just like see and compare prices, because sometimes Checkers only gives you like a kilogram of chicken pieces when all I want is 500 grams.
And the listed price is like 1.5 kilograms.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, sometimes I'll be buying in bulk from these delivery apps, and I just don't want to do that. I also find that preservation of the cold chain is something that is becoming more and more of an issue, especially with 60/60. So,
sorry, unpack that for us, sorry.
Okay, so like when something comes out of the fridge, right, it needs to stay cold. So like let's take chicken for an example. So if chicken gets above a certain temperature, and it's not even a hot temperature, it's like room temperature, you can't really eat it. It becomes dangerous. The risk of foodborne illness goes up.
As in left uncooked is what
left uncooked,
understood.
yeah. So what I find with a lot of these apps is that they won't be cognizant of the cold chain. They won't preserve that. Woolworths does. So Woolworths maintains the cold chain. Those little bike boxes, they do have cooling stuff in them. So they do try and maintain the cold chain. But I find that Checkers 60/60 doesn't seem to care too much about it. Like they'll put the chicken in its own little bag to separate it from everything else. But there's been times where I've gotten stuff and I'm like, ooh, this is quite warm. How long has this been sitting out? It's happened with milk. It's happened with other dairy products. Like eggs is not so much of an issue, but like that is a real bugbear for me. Like I'm very, very concerned. I have a sensitive stomach, so like if I eat something that's even just a little bit off, I'm sitting on that toilet for the rest of the day. So for me, like I think that needs to be something that's more of a consideration, is maintaining that cold chain throughout the process of delivery.
Cold chain, you learn something new every day. Great. All right, so I think now we can potentially rank the different grocery apps. I think the general consensus here is that Checkers 60/60 is not perfect, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, it's pretty much the one I recommend to people.
All right.
Yeah.
And then can we agree then that probably Woolies Dash is a solid second? Not really close to first at all, but pretty much a solid second?
Yeah, I think they're a solid contender to against
good alternative.
Checkers. Yeah. I think if you are looking for stuff and you don't really care too much about how much you're spending, like I think Woolworths is a great option. Just the quality of stuff. Like don't be fooled by all the naysaying that people do and think that you're bougie because you go to Woolworths. It's a really good shop.
Yeah.
And then I think probably Pick and Pay, ASAP, and Spar to You have quite a bit of catching up to do.
Yeah.
In that third and fourth
Especially
spots.
Spar to You.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Zulzi will fit somewhere around there.
I think Zulzi's like flip of a coin, it seems.
Yeah.
Because they're not bad, but they have some negatives.
It's inconsistent.
Yeah.
If your sole purpose is getting it for the under 15 minutes, there's still the risk that it might not happen.
That it might not, yeah. You could wait an hour for the delivery because the guy's in a car instead of a motorbike.
And then I think probably the dark horse in all of this is Uber Eats, because probably a year from now we could be ranking things quite differently.
Yeah.
And maybe Mr. D as well, you know. They're trying more with the grocery stuff. Now Bolt Foods died a miserable death, so they're never going to do any grocery thing.
Pour one out for Bolt Food.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's
Yeah, I think Uber Eats and Mr. D have some potential. I think Uber Eats probably is the leader in that category just because of the Uber name. I mean, I say that Mr. D's been around since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So, I mean, Mr. Delivery back then.
Delivery.
But I think that those two, like you say, they're a dark horse. I think that what's good about them is that they're not tied to a single store. They can do deliveries from all sorts of places. So, I mean, if you need, like, from Spice World or whatever, you need to get some cardamom pods for the curry that you're doing. Like, I mean, that might be a good option. Especially if more stores cotton onto this and go, yeah, we want to be a part of this ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think probably one last shout out to OneCart.
Yeah.
We miss you, man. Like, come on.
I mean, one card is good. Like, if you want online delivery for places like Macro and you don't want to have to go through Macro, you want it today. Like, if you need a couch today for whatever, but I don't know if they deliver couches, but you know.
Doesn't hurt to find out. All right, so I think that's probably going to do it for this episode of Geeks Loveless. We do appreciate you taking the time to listen to it. Let us know your thoughts. Have you gotten it terribly wrong? Have you missed a food delivery app that's on the come up that is going to change the entire landscape? Let us know, please. And as always, thanks to Brendyn Lotz and Monzon for joining me.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.